This is one of the most examined issues, how the Niger language got into the president's speech, what was its genesis, it was in the NIE, what was thought of it. This has been examined by a bipartisan commission by Chuck Robb and Larry Silberman, by the Senate Select Intelligence Committee. I was asked about it in questions for the record for my confirmation hearing. I have given Chairman Waxman hundreds of pages of documentation.
So you're not going.
How the intelligence was gotten to policymakers, how it got into the speech. All of these things have actually been examined by Rob Silberman, by the Senate Intelligence Committee. We've commented on it on the record. Dan Bartlett and Steve Hadley went through an exhaustive discussion of how it happened. This claim has been investigated and investigated and investigated. I would just ask people to go back and read the multiple reports about this particular incident. Go back and read. Wolf, let me be very clear. It's not as if these questions haven't been answered. They were answered not just when I was confirmed, but they are also answered in a bipartisan commission report by Lawrence Silberman and Chuck Robb. The Senate Select Intelligence Committee went into an exhaustive review of this issue of the Niger matter and the 16 words. We've spoken publicly about it, and I'm prepared to continue to answer further questions about it, as I've done in the several letters that I've sent to Congressman Waxman in response to his inquiries.
Hi, this is Josh Marshall from TPM Media. It's Monday, April 30th, 2007. That was Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice explaining why she's going to refuse to comply with a subpoena sent to her by Chairman Henry Waxman. He's the chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and he wants her to come up to Capitol Hill and explain what the White House knew about the intelligence about Iraqi WMD before the Iraq War began, and specifically those notorious 16 words that the president used in his January 2003 State of the Union address. Now, besides the alleged constitutional separation of powers issue, as you can see from those clips, Secretary of Rice's argument here is that this is just a dead horse that's been flogged and flogged for years. It's been investigated and investigated, et cetera, et cetera. You can see what she says right there. Here's the point, what she's not saying. It's been investigated and investigated in investigations controlled by Republicans trying to protect the White House. Senate Intelligence Committee report. This is something we've talked about a lot on TPM going back a couple years now. The thing is really a tissue of lies, especially on the issue of the Niger question. The Silberman-Robb report, nominally a bipartisan commission put together at the auspices of the White House. Now, here's the other point to recognize about these two investigations. In both cases, they were specifically prohibited from investigating what the White House did with the intelligence. There's how the intelligence came about, and then there's what the White House did with it. Both of these investigations were specifically prohibited from investigating that point. Here's the reality here. Condoleezza Rice and the White House doesn't want this question investigated by Democrats. They don't want this investigated by a group of people who actually want to find out what happened. That's the key here. Now, if you've been reading TPM for a few years, you know that I spent almost a year and a half reporting on this case. I got very deeply into it. I was actually one of the few reporters who's ever interviewed Rocco Martino. He's the guy who actually sold the bogus Niger documents to that reporter in Rome. And based on that knowledge and what I looked into about the Senate intelligence report about Iraqi WMD, the thing is intentionally put together to mislead readers. Intentionally, it's really a tissue of lies, particularly on the issue of the Niger question, Joe Wilson, etc. So contrary to what Secretary of State Rice says, this is really an issue that's never been seriously investigated. There's no shortage of investigations going on right now on Capitol Hill. There's the fired U.S. attorney story that we've been covering nonstop for the last few months, and there's a lot of other investigations, a lot of other issues to get to the bottom of. But this one is really critical and of singular importance. Why did we go to war in Iraq? How did the White House use and misuse the intelligence about Iraqi WMD? How did they manipulate the American public? That's an issue that is yet to be seriously investigated. When Condoleezza Rice says it has, she's just lying. There's no two ways about it. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk to you about the latest on the U.S. attorney story. Okay, we're back. From now on, we're going to try to take one episode a week where we give you a concise summary of the latest developments in the U.S. Attorney firing story. In the last week, there's been new evidence that's come forward that besides the U.S. attorneys who were fired in December of last year, those are the ones you already know about, it seems now that going back through 2006, there were a number of what you might call soft firings, U.S. attorneys who were pushed out without anybody knowing about it at the time. So tomorrow, we're going to give you an update on those new developments. I'm Josh Marshall from TPM Media, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.